This is an article from the Reformed Presbyterian, April 1838, entitled Pentland. The Battle of Pentland formed an important era in the sufferings of the persecuted Church of Scotland and of the struggles of her heroic sons, the Covenanters, to obtain deliverance from tyranny and oppression. It was evidently the design of Charles II and his court minions to form a despotic system of government upon the people of Great Britain. The Presbyterianism of the Church of Scotland stood in their way. The first object, then, was the destruction of the Presbyterian form of church government, that by the aid of episcopacy a civil despotism might be introduced into Scotland. The restoration of Charles to the throne of his ancestors, which took place in the month of May, 1660, was immediately followed by incipient steps for the overturning of the Church of Scotland. This design was steadily kept in view by the faithless Charles and his bigoted brother James, till the latter was disgracefully driven from his dominions by the people of Britain in 1688, a period of 28 years' suffering and persecution to the Scottish Covenanters. Peacefully disposed as they were, these pious men, and unwilling as they were to appeal to the sword in defense of their civil and religious rights, they were taught by dear experience that these were not to be secured in any other way. To the exalted practical views of these devoted men relative to civil and religious liberty is the world indebted for whatever it enjoys of either. The rising of the Covenanters in arms, which ended so unhappily in their discomfiture at Pentland, was the first attempt, after the Restoration, to obtain a redress of grievances by the resistance to their military oppressors. It was not a preconcerted measure for which preparation had been made. It was a necessity to which the Covenanters were reduced by circumstances unforeseen to them. Quote, "In the spring of 1666, says a historian of that period, Sir James Turner, by order of the council, marched the third time to the west country, which he rendered, notwithstanding its impoverished condition, a scene of general devastation. Neither gentlemen nor peasants, neither old nor young, were spared, and till the month of November the west country presented a scene of ferocity of which savages themselves might have been ashamed. On the 13th of the month, 4 countrymen, who had been driven to the mountains by the merciless soldiery, having learned that some of the military were torturing a poor aged man in the village of Derry in Galloway, repaired to the house and endeavored by entreaties to induce the savages to desist from their work of cruelty. Their interference only rendered the soldiers the more fierce, and being attacked by this armed band, they were compelled to stand on their own defense. After a scuffle, the soldiers were overpowered and disarmed. But the victors, aware of the danger to which they were now exposed, endeavored, not without success, to gain a number of other Covenanters to support them in the event of their being attacked by a superior force. The country was soon alarmed. But ere the royalist forces could be collected, the Covenanters, having marched to Dumfries on the 15th, took Sir James Turner prisoner and dispersed his troops. They marched immediately towards Edinburgh by the way of Lanark and Bathgate. At the former place they published a declaration, or manifesto, explicitly stating the grounds on which they had taken up arms. Colonel Wallace, who commanded the Covenanters, found it absolutely necessary to stand on the defense at a place called Rullion Green, at the foot of the Pentland Hills, a few miles to the south of Edinburgh. At this place they were overtaken by General Dalziel, who commanded the royal army. The engagement took place in the afternoon of the 28th of November, when Wallace twice forced Dalziel's troops to retire in confusion, but on a third attack about sunset the Covenanters were completely routed. It was greatly wondered, says Mr. Blackender, that such a poor, inconsiderable party of countrymen, so badly armed as they were, so outwearied with cold, travel, and hunger, should have ever faced such a formidable enemy. The Covenanters could scarcely number 900, while the royal army consisted of over 3,000. 50 Covenanters were left dead on the field of battle, and 130 of them taken prisoners by Dalziel. The following beautiful lines of this mournful event are part of a poem entitled Pentland Hills, which first appeared in the Edinburgh Evening Post. Quote, "Ah, days of Scotia still deplored, a faithless king and bigot lord, against their subjects drew the sword, sent forth their foes malignantly. Firm in the faith of gospel truth stood hoary age and guileless youth against oppressors void of ruth, in cold blood killing wantonly. On yonder heights their blood was shed, and many a faint and dropping head made on the sod its dying bed, the spirit soaring joyfully. And those who fled before their foes saw days of darkness round them close. By faithful fearless midst their woes stood patient in adversity. Their preachers silenced and deposed, the house of prayer against them closed. They on the mountain heath reposed, but though in great perplexity, their harps were not on willows hung, but still in tune and ready strung, till mountain echoes round them rung, to songs of joyful melody. Though from their friends and home exiled, lone wanderers in the desert wild, the wilderness around them smiled, for heaven approved their constancy. Exposed to torture, scorn, and shame, in sufferings great they overcame, and glorying in a martyr's name, they met their deaths triumphantly. Though some have sought their fame to blot, their memory ne'er shall be forgot, whilst their oppressor's name shall rot, or live to lasting infamy.